What if I told you that you could write a 126-page book, fully outlined, drafted, and edited without ever even looking at a blank page?
I mean, that sounds totally made up, right? Like a gimmick.
Right. But the secret isn't some, expensive new software tool. It's simply refusing to ever close your browser tab.
Yeah, it's crazy. But the mechanics behind that specific workflow, they're actually this incredible masterclass in understanding how large language models truly operate.
That is exactly the shift in perspective we are unpacking today. Because, whenever someone mentions an AI-written book, a very specific image jumps to mind for you, right?
Oh, for sure. The literary vending machine.
Yes, exactly. The vending machine. You picture walking up, punching in a prompt like, write me a sci-fi thriller, and you press a button, and a finished but slightly robotic paperback just drops out.
And that expectation is just entirely passive. And the result you get from that approach is, well, exactly what you'd expect. It's mass-produced, stale, and just completely lacking a soul.
Which brings us to our focus for today's deep dive. We're looking at this fascinating piece from the AI 365 blog, published on June 20th, 2026, by an author named William. It's titled, From Blank Page to Bestseller, How I Wrote a Book with Meta AI in a Single Chat Session.
Yeah, and our mission here is to completely dismantle that vending machine myth.
Yeah.
We really want to dive into the specific step-by-step workflow required to properly guide an AI through planning, outlining, and drafting.
Right, because the ultimate goal here is to help you skip that awful paralysis of the blank page, but without generating a hollow manuscript.
Exactly. And to do that, you have to completely change your mental model. Writing with AI isn't a vending machine. It's much more like working with an incredibly fast, highly skilled, but remarkably naive sous chef.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Yeah. I mean, if you walk into a kitchen and just yell, make dinner at this sous chef,
Yeah.
you're going to get a bizarre mishmash of, whatever happened to be sitting in the fridge.
Right, like pickles and peanut butter.
Exactly. You still have to be the head chef. You have to design the menu, pick the ingredients, and crucially, paste the sauce along the way.
The creative burden, that overarching vision, it still rests entirely on your shoulders. The AI is simply executing the repetitive labor, generating words based on your explicit commands.
Yep. It's the laborer, not the visionary.
So I want to say right up front to you listening, whether you have a secret ambition to write the next great fantasy novel or you just want to tackle a massive, complex project at work, understanding this method of collaboration will fundamentally change your relationship with the technology.
Oh, completely. It's a game changer.
So let's get into the kitchen. To manage this incredibly fast assistant, we can't just start throwing ingredients around. We have to do the pre-work before we ever even open a chat window.
Right. And the author is incredibly strict about this phase. He calls it starting before you start. Because if you skip this, your output will invariably feel flat.
You have to define the core elements definitively on your own before typing a single word into Meta AI.
Exactly. And there are three crucial questions. The first absolute requirement is defining what the book is specifically about. And you only get 1 or 2 sentences to do it. You cannot be vague.
So you can't just say, like, it's a mystery set in a small town.
No, that is practically a guarantee for a boring story. You have to define the stakes and the story world so clearly that a total stranger or an AI instantly grasps the core conflict.
So something highly specific, like, a disgraced former detective must return to his remote coastal hometown to solve the murder of his estranged brother, only to uncover a conspiracy involving the town's founding family.
Yes, perfect. That gives the AI concrete guardrails. From there, you have to define the audience.
What is just question number 2?
Right. Are you writing for teenagers who need fast-paced action? Or, busy professionals who want a punchy business fable? Because defining the audience dictates the entire vocabulary library the AI will pull from.
Okay, so we have the plot and the audience. But a thriller for adults could be, terrifying and gritty, or it could be a fun, fast-paced puzzle. How does the AI know which vibe to go for?
And that bridges perfectly to the third element, which people almost always skip. But the author argues it's actually the most critical. You have to decide what you want your reader to feel when they finish the last sentence.
Ah, the emotional destination.
Exactly. Do you want them to feel a sense of triumph? A lingering sense of paranoia? Do you want them to feel motivated to change their own lives?
Wow, okay.
Yeah, that emotional goal drives every ending, every character arc, and every major plot decision. You have to know where you're driving before you put the car in gear, And once that's locked in, you can actually ask Meta AI for like 5 different opening hooks to explore creative directions.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit because I have a genuine question. I'm sort of stuck on this idea of picking a structure. It feels like we are babysitting a supercomputer.
It does feel that way sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. Right. Like, why can't I just give it those elements, the detective, the adult audience, the feeling of paranoia, say, write a great story and let it figure out the structure? I mean, it's read every book ever written.
I understand that frustration completely, and honestly, it's the #1 reason people abandon AI writing tools. You have to remember what a large language model actually is at its core. It is a predictive text engine.
Just guessing the next word.
Exactly. It's constantly calculating the next most statistically likely word based on its training data. Because it has read everything, it knows every single possible direction a story could take.
So it gets lost in the possibilities.
Yeah, if you don't give it a roadmap, it will just wander aimlessly from scene to scene, following whatever immediate local tangent seems plausible in that exact moment. AI is a brilliant follower, but it's a terrible leader.
That makes so much sense. It has no object permanence for the narrative. It's just laying track an inch in front of the train.
That's a great way to put it, which is why you have to constrain its possibilities by explicitly naming a structural framework.
Okay, so what frameworks does the author recommend?
He breaks down 3 specific ones. The first is the classic 3-act structure: setup, conflict, resolution. It's clean, familiar, and works perfectly for thrillers, memoirs, and, commercial fiction.
So by explicitly telling the AI to use the 3-act structure, you're triggering all of its associations with blockbuster pacing.
Exactly. Now, if you want something less Hollywood and a bit more dramatic, you would command it to use Freytag's pyramid.
Oh, right, Freytag's pyramid.
Yeah, this structure builds tension steadily and carefully toward one single, massive, dramatic peak, the climax, before winding back down into a resolution. It's much more suited for literary fiction or a story with a Greek tragedy feel.
So it forces the AI to focus on rising action and character tension rather than just jumping from explosion to explosion.
Spot on. And the third one he mentions is the hero's journey, which is the backbone of almost every fantasy or sci-fi epic.
Oh yeah, where a character leaves their familiar world, gets tested, faces an ordeal, and returns fundamentally changed.
Right. When you include the phrase hero's journey in your prompt, you're activating a very specific trope library in the AI's network. It immediately understands that it needs to generate mentors, crossing the threshold moments, and a clear transformation for the protagonist.
And so the vocabulary you use to define the structure completely changes the mathematical weights of the words the AI predicts next.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have our pre-work done. We know what we're making, who it's for, how it should feel, and the structural shape it's going to take. Now we actually have to interface with the AI and write the thing. Which brings us to the most critical technical rule of this entire process.
Yes, the single session secret.
Right, because how do we ensure this AI actually remembers our brilliant plan while generating hundreds of pages of text?
This is the absolute golden rule of long-form AI collaboration. Under no circumstances should you ever close your active chat window.
I feel like I need to underline that for anyone listening. Never close the chat.
Never. Meta AI, and really all current generation large language models, operate within what is called a context window. You can think of it as the AI's short-term memory, or like a whiteboard it uses to keep track of the current conversation.
Okay.
It only remembers the information contained within that specific active window. The second you close that chat and open a new one, the whiteboard is wiped clean.
Oh, wow. So it gets total amnesia.
Total amnesia. It
Yeah.
completely forgets your protagonist, the rules of your world, the tone you established, everything.
That sounds incredibly tedious. You would have to paste in a massive summary document every single time you sat down to write, just to get it back up to speed.
Which, why you don't do it. By keeping everything in one continuous session, you turn that single chat window into a living project document. As you progress through the drafting phase, the AI can continuously look back at the earlier messages in that specific thread.
So it inherently remembers that your protagonist has a limp or that it's always raining in the city without you having to constantly remind it. But practically speaking, if I'm writing an 80,000-word novel, that single chat thread is going to get incredibly long and messy. As that context window fills up, doesn't the AI start getting confused or hallucinating details from earlier in the conversation?
It absolutely can, and that's a great point, which is why the author introduces this really brilliant maintenance technique. You have to periodically ask for recaps.
Recaps.
Yeah, every few chapters, you simply stop generating new text and command the AI to summarize where the story currently stands. You ask it to summarize the plot so far, list the active characters and their current motivations, and reiterate the rules of the world.
That is exactly like when you're watching a really complicated movie with a friend, and halfway through you pause it and say, okay, wait, recap this for me. The guy with the briefcase is actually working for the government, right?
That is the perfect analogy.
You just do it to make sure they're actually paying attention and haven't lost the plot.
Precisely. Asking for a recap forces the AI to synthesize the entire context window. It pulls all those vital details from the top of the chat back down to the most recent interaction, which heavily anchors its attention back to your core vision before you continue drafting.
I love that. Okay, so we have our living document. We are anchored. Let's talk about the actual workflow. The author breaks this down into a very methodical, 6-step sequence of prompts.
He does, and it's super logical.
I imagine the hardest part is getting the initial spark right. If you feed it a weak idea, you get a weak story. How does the author suggest initiating that first prompt?
Well, step one is nailing the premise. You start by combining those raw elements from your free work, your setting, your characters, your emotional goal, and you ask the AI to generate a high-stakes premise. But you don't just ask for one.
Right, give yourself options.
Exactly. A great prompt looks like acting as an expert developmental editor, review these core elements I've provided, generate 5 different one-paragraph premise options for a Nordic noir thriller, ensuring each option highlights a different potential twist.
Oh, that's smart. You're testing the AI's understanding right out of the gate. So once you pick the premise that resonates, how do you move to a roadmap?
Step 2 is building the outline. You request a chapter-by-chapter roadmap, but you have to dictate the architecture. A bad prompt is simply write an outline.
Right, because then it wanders.
Exactly. A good prompt is create a 20-chapter outline using the 3-act structure. Make sure chapter 10 ends with a massive betrayal that reverses the protagonist's goal, and ensure the climax in chapter 18 resolves the emotional theme of paranoia we establish.
You are telling it exactly where the load-bearing walls of the story need to go.
Yep.
So what about step 3, the characters? Because, I mean, AI characters are notoriously flat and agreeable. They sound like customer service representatives.
They really do. And that's because average internet text, which the AI is trained on, usually describes characters externally. To get compelling characters, you have to prompt for internal flaws.
Okay, how do you do that?
You ask the AI to generate deep profiles, but you specifically command it to map their emotional growth directly to the outline you just built. For example, you tell the AI the detective's inability to trust his partner must be the direct reason chapter 10 ends in a betrayal.
Wow, so that weaves the character arc inextricably into the narrative structure.
Exactly. It connects the internal and the external.
Now, I want to pause on step 4, building the world, because it really surprised me. The author suggests generating a massive list of sensory details about your world before writing any scenes.
Yeah, sensory details: sight, sound, smell.
Right. What does the coastal town look like? What does the sea breeze smell like? Why do this as a separate exercise? Why not just describe the town when you actually write the scene?
It comes back to how the context window works. We call it token seeding. By establishing the smell of the sea salt and the sound of the distant foghorn early in the chat, those specific vocabulary tokens are now sitting active in the AI's memory.
Oh, that is fascinating.
Yeah. So when you finally ask it to draft a scene in that town hours later, those sensory words naturally surface when the AI calculates the most likely next word. It makes the writing feel incredibly grounded and immersive, almost automatically.
The atmosphere is literally already baked into the mathematical weights of the conversation.
Exactly.
Okay, so we finally have our outline, our flawed characters, and our sensory world. I feel like if you're following along, you're going to feel an overwhelming urge to just tell the AI, great, now write chapter 1.
You have to resist that urge. That brings us to step 5.
Drafting scene by scene.
Yes. If you ask for a whole chapter, the AI will summarize. It'll say, the detective had a tense argument with the mayor and then left to investigate the docs. It compresses the action.
Which is boring to read.
Right. To get a usable manuscript, you must draft scene by scene. You look at your outline, pick the first scene, and prompt the AI with specific instructions like, draft the scene where the detective meets the mayor. Prioritize sharp, realistic dialogue. Reveal the detective's trust issues through his body language and show the oppressive weather outside the window.
So you're basically acting as the director on a movie set, giving the actors their motivations before shouting action.
That's exactly it. And once it generates that scene, you move into step 6, the refinement phase.
Where you act as the editor.
Right. You refine as you go. You might say, the pacing is too slow in the middle, make the dialogue snappier and remove the exposition, or add more of those sensory details we established earlier. You treat the AI like a tireless writing partner who is happy to revise the same paragraph 20 times without complaining.
Which is amazing. So the friction of staring at a blank page is entirely gone. We've conquered it. But here's where it gets really interesting. It feels like the blank page has simply been replaced by a completely new kind of work.
It absolutely has.
Right, because the AI has drafted all the scenes using our structure, our characters, and our iterative prompts. So is the book done? Can we just export it and publish it?
Absolutely not. The author is incredibly emphatic about this. The human element is still the most vital part of the equation. If you just take the raw AI output and try to publish it, you're going to run into major problems.
Okay, but what are we doing if we aren't typing every word? How does this fundamentally reframe the author's job? If the AI text is grammatically perfect, what's the actual issue with publishing it raw?
Well, being grammatically perfect is actually the core of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Large language models are essentially averaging machines. They output the statistical mean of human writing.
So it's basically the most average writing possible.
Exactly. The result is text that is too clean, too predictable, and fundamentally cliché. It lacks the jagged edges, the weird rhythmic variations, and the unique quirks that make a human voice captivating.
And what about continuity?
Oh yeah, even with recap prompts, AI is prone to continuity errors over long texts. It might forget a crucial subplot you introduced 3 chapters ago, or suddenly change the time of day mid-scene, or, forget a character's eye color.
So you really shift from being the bricklayer to being the architect and the quality control inspector. How do we defeat those AI cliches? Because the author lays out some highly actionable, simple steps to maintain your unique voice, right? To ensure the manuscript still has a soul.
He does. The very first thing you should do, even before the outlining phase, is feed the AI your own writing samples.
Oh, so it learns your voice early on.
Yeah, paste in a few paragraphs of things you've written previously, an old blog post, a passionate email, anything that captures your natural rhythm. The more examples the AI has of your specific sentence structure, the better it can mimic your tone throughout the session.
That makes a lot of sense. And when it comes to the actual drafting, the author has a very strict operational rule about how you handle the generated text.
Yes, and this is crucial. Keep all of your AI drafts in a completely separate document. Never, ever paste them directly into your final manuscript file.
Wait, really? Why is that physical separation so important?
Because it forces you to actively engage with the text. If you just copy and paste an AI-generated scene into your final document, psychological inertia takes over. You'll be tempted to just leave it alone because it looks finished.
Oh, I can totally see that happening.
Right. By keeping it in a separate window, you're forced to use the AI text as a very detailed, high-resolution outline. You read it, and then you actively retype and rewrite it into your final document.
So you're using the AI output as raw clay, not as the finished sculpture. You still have to get your hands dirty and mold it.
Precisely. As you transfer the text, you actively rewrite the generic lines. You inject your own phrasing, your own humor, and your own personality. You also step into the role of the ultimate continuity editor.
Checking to make sure it didn't change the time of day.
Exactly. You cannot trust the AI to remember every detail perfectly. You have to read carefully to ensure the plot logic tracks, the character voices remain distinct, and the pacing feels right to a human reader.
And there is one final, highly practical step the author insists on before you even think about sharing the work.
Yes. You must always run a final plagiarism check.
Because AI is trained on previously published text.
Exactly. These models are trained on vast amounts of copyrighted text. While they are generating new combinations of words, there is always a statistical chance that a specific phrase or descriptive passage could closely resemble something that already exists out there in the world.
It's just a necessary layer of protection. You have to verify the originality of your final manuscript to ensure that the work you are putting out is legally and ethically yours, even if you used an AI as a collaborative partner.
It's a simple step, but an essential one. It really cements your role as the final author and owner of the text.
Wow. Let's take a step back and look at the massive journey we've just mapped out today.
It's a lot.
It really is. We started with the absolute necessity of doing the emotional and structural pre-work. We chose a framework like the 3-act structure or the hero's journey to constrain the AI's predictive text. We established the golden rule of maintaining a single continuous chat session to utilize the context window.
And we used the movie recap method to keep the AI anchored.
Yes. Then we walked through the methodical 6-step sequence, commanding premises, dictating structural outlines, forcing character flaws, and token seeding sensory details before drafting scene by scene. And finally, we discuss the inescapable human responsibility of using that text as clay, editing for voice, continuity, and originality.
When you lay the entire workflow out like that, it really highlights how intentional and deeply involved this process is. It is the complete opposite of pressing a button on a vending machine.
It truly is. But let me ask you this. If someone listening to this has absolutely no intention of ever writing a novel, why should they care about this incredibly detailed process?
Because this methodology is universally applicable to modern knowledge work. Oh yeah, acting as the visionary director rather than the laborer, feeding clear structural frameworks to an AI, working sequentially to build context, and refining the output manually that is the exact blueprint for collaborating with AI on any complex project.
So not just novels.
Not at all. Whether you are drafting a massive business proposal, designing a marketing campaign, or organizing a year's worth of curriculum, this approach is how you reclaim your time without sacrificing quality. It shifts your role from doing the tedious generation to managing the strategic execution.
It democratizes the ability to execute on massive, complex ideas, but it still demands human taste, human experience, and human oversight to make the final product matter.
Exactly. It amplifies your capabilities, but it doesn't replace your judgment.
I love that. Well, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final lingering thought. In the source text, the author mentions almost as an aside that he actually used this exact process to turn his own scattered older blog posts into that cohesive 126-page book.
Oh.
Yeah, he didn't start from a blank page at all. He started with his own messy existing ideas. So, what if the most profound use of AI isn't inventing brand new fictional worlds from scratch? What if the real magic is using it as a mirror?
That's a fascinating way to look at it.
A tool to finally organize, structure, and breathe life into all those chaotic, brilliant ideas you've already written down in your notes app or in old emails but never quite knew how to assemble. The tools are there, the frameworks are proven, and the session is open. What are you going to build?